As I walk through this because it's kind of pretty mundane, but it's a very important part as I go through here and explain, how to put your billing information on there, how to, make a payment, or versus you usually utilizing the automatic payments because it's a very, very important notice lesson that you will need to pay close attention to, write down on a board because it can really save you all the trouble in the world, and especially getting your account suspended, right? The other aspect that we're going to go through is how to actually assign and change your billing information in here and assign additional managers so you can actually have multiple people either basically add additional payment sources on here and things along those lines. So where we start within this, again, is at the tools menu at the top of the screen. And then on the right-hand side, you have your billing portion, right? Your billing summary, billing documents, and billing settings. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on billing summary so I can walk you down through the top, okay? So your balance this is basically how much you've spent within the account so far, right? This is a brand new account, so we don't have any spend in here, but you'll see down here where it says your entire 350 payment threshold is available. So that 350 is the threshold that you have to spend before your card is actually charged. And it's 350 or 30 days, right? So if all of a sudden you start on March 1st and you're spending to, March 31st, but you haven't hit that 350 mark, then what it's going to do is, let's say you've only spent $200, then on the 31st day of the month, it's going to go ahead and bill you out that $200 and just restart your threshold for the following month. The 350 threshold is a payment threshold. They go up from 500. I've seen them as high as 750, even 1,000, where they wait to actually take money out of your card. So it's really indicative of how much you're going to spend and how fast you spend it in the account, right? If you're only spending $1,000 a month, you're probably going to hit a couple different 350 thresholds. If you're spending $50,000 a month and you're spending $1,000 a day, you're probably going to see the thresholds roll through at a higher rate at like a $750 or $1,000 mark. Within this screen as well, you want to keep in mind it does allow you to make a payment. Once we get our payment information on here, right, it will allow you to make a payment, but I caution you, stay away from that. That's the worst idea that you can possibly do, especially before you've even started with the account. So a few years ago, Google had a really, really big problem with the tech service industry. There were some overseas entities that were kind of, whenever they would log onto people's accounts to help them fix it, they were also dropping malware in there. And one of the things that they would do during that process in order to kind of almost game the Google system, or what they thought it was happening at least, is you would see a bunch of accounts that would load up like $3,000 or $5,000 at a time. So they would hit make a payment, right? And it would bring up the payment information, right? And it would allow me to put in like a payment for $5,000, right? $6,000 since I can't type right now. It would allow me to select, the payment format that I'm doing, and then I would hit make a payment, and it would load it to the account. Well, the problem with that is the system would recognize the spend in there, and it would try and blow through that spend. With these people would build these accounts at $3,000 or $5,000 a day, and they would spend for 2 or 3 days while Google was going through the process of not only verifying their billing information, but verifying the company information, verifying the user information, the numbers, all of the verification process that typically takes anywhere from a week to 2 weeks as you go through and scale these accounts, where they're verifying all the information to not only protect themselves, but protect the consumer and obviously protect the advertiser, when they are doing it in good faith. All of that process is done in the first week or 2 weeks. And it can sometimes be a slow process, but that's what they were doing in order to try and game it, is they would put $5,000 in there, put ridiculously high budgets, and try to spin through that before Google really caught on to the fact that they were really scammers. So what Google's done now, and I've noticed this because unfortunately I actually try to make a payment on a balance I had on the account while it was going through that process, and they actually flagged my account immediately. So I've seen it happen in a couple other accounts that I've managed as well, whenever we had flighted campaigns or specific purposes where somebody wanted to spend a preset amount, where it is possible to load that stuff up. But ideally, it's better just to load it to the card, and then after you've gone through the verification process, then you can set the budget appropriately. And then as well, when we go through setting up these accounts, I'm going to teach you how to actually set start and end dates so you control those as much better. So from this summary screen, again, those are kind of the points that you really want to pay attention to and make sure that you avoid on here, and also how you're aware of how you're going to be billed out from there. From this summary screen, though, we can also put in manage payments, right? So we can add additional payments. And I always tell people to add a couple different process or a couple different payment sources on there, because for any one reason, your financial institution may deny a payment, right? It may not be ready to see payments come from California because you're based in Missouri. It may, see that you are actually based in England, and all of a sudden the payments have to come out of the United States, and your financial institute doesn't see that. There's any number of reasons why they can deny it, right? I've had particular problems with certain banks that don't like econ industries, right? Where maybe a local regional bank or some of the national banks are a little bit more cognizant of the type of transactions they're going to receive, so they don't put as many flags on them. But this is the screen where you can add either your primary payment source, and what it's going to do is basically when you do add payment, it's going to ask you to do a debit card or a bank account, right? You can do it bank account, but to be quite honest with you, I always go with debit cards for a couple different reasons, right? There's higher security on debit cards. The FDIC insures those as well, especially credit cards, where you can actually do fraud prevention on those and maintain and save your money a lot better. Also, if you ever are compromised, it's easier to cancel a debit card or a credit card than it is to completely redo your entire checking account. The other aspect that's kind of a pain in the butt, it takes more cumbersome and is more time consuming if you are trying to get your AdWords account up and going quicker. Google Ads will, whenever you put in your bank account information, they're actually going to do a test deposit on your account. And you have to find that test deposit and then come back in here and put that test deposit in before they'll actually verify your account. So the debit card's always the way I go. Now, after you put in your debit card number, it's going to ask for your expiration date, your CIV or your CVV number on the back, and then it's also going to ask for your zip code. Now, the main thing is you put a couple different in here, so you have a primary, and then you'll also have an option here that'll have, make this my secondary option. So that's where you put in the payment terms, right? As we go back to the settings, you can also, from this menu on here, you can actually do a couple different things, right? You can actually change your payment account nickname here. You can also adjust some of the payment profile. If you have tax and exempt information, such as nonprofits, 501(c)(3)s, charities, stuff like that, you can put your tax exempt information so that you aren't charged tax in there. Also, collateral growth. This is what your business name and address are. So that's actually what's going to link back to the billing profile. So the billing profile, again, if you need to change what account information is on your credit card, this is where you do that. All right, you can just change it in here. You put your address, type of things. I need to actually complete mine, but since we're recording, we won't do that. Now, payment users, this is another very important process, right? You see how I have a couple different on here. I have Nelson Sparks, Nelson P. Sparks, collateral growth test at Gmail. We've got collateralgrowth.com. That's pending. So these two users are the only people that can actually place credit cards on the account. Now, why is this important? Let's say you have somebody who manages or helps you manage your account, and you are on vacation, and all of a sudden your payment source gets denied for one reason or another, and you have to add one back on there. If their information isn't on there, then they can't come onto the account and actually have the heightened permission in order to place a payment source on the account. So that's just kind of one scenario. Obviously, if you're working in an agency, you have multiple people that are going to access the account. You may not want a whole bunch of people having access to that, but at least your key components should be in there. So the other thing as well that you're going to see on this billing summary is transactions. You can see your transaction history as well. It'll also give you, from the summary, it gives you this up to date, but these are actually where the specific transactions will show up, where it'll show your debits and your charges, so you can actually view that a little bit better. So that's the billing summary and payments and how you get into it. Now, in the next video, we're going to walk through some very, very important information. In the previous one, we talked about the importance of validating your number and making sure that all your content on your site was there and present, right, whenever Google crawlers go out there. This next portion is all about the policies and the T's and C's, right, the terms and conditions. So pay very, very close in this next video about the tools that I'm going to provide with you, because these tools will save you thousands in attorney's fees. It'll make sure you cover your butt so you continue to put money in your pocket and make sure your accounts stay active. So let's go jump on over to the next lesson, and we'll dive into the policies and procedures and terms and conditions.